My fiancée claimed she wasn't ready to commit, but asked me to wait. I smiled and said of course. Then I deleted my socials and vanished overseas. A month later, she was texting everyone we knew, asking if they'd heard from me. You ever have a moment where the world just goes quiet? Not peaceful quiet, but the dead, airless quiet of a vacuum. That's what happened to me last month, sitting in our favorite restaurant, the one where I was planning to finalize our wedding caterer. My fiancée Sarah had just dropped a bomb, and the entire universe seemed to hold its breath to hear the fallout. I just think, she said, swirling the wine in her glass, that things are moving too fast. I'm not sure I'm ready to commit right now. I just looked at her. We had been together for 5 years. We'd been engaged for 6 months. The wedding was in 3 months. We lived in a house I owned. My name was on everything. Her name was on a supplementary credit card I paid for. I had spent the last 5 years building a life, and she was talking about pumping the brakes 100 feet from the finish line. So you're calling off the wedding? I asked. My voice sounded distant, like it was coming from someone else. No, not at all, she said quickly, reaching across the table to put her hand on mine. Her touch felt strange. I just need a pause. I need you to wait for me. Just until I figure things out. I love you, you know that. I just need to be sure. Can you do that for me? Can you wait? Her friends, Ashley and Megan, who were with us to help with the planning, were nodding along, looking at me with these sympathetic, rap-pitying eyes. Ashley chimed in. It's totally normal, Ben. A lot of women get cold feet. You just have to give her some space to breathe. I looked at Sarah's face. She had this earnest, pleading expression, but her eyes were already somewhere else. She wasn't asking for space. She was asking for a safety net. She wanted the ring, the status, the security of a fiancé, but she also wanted the freedom of a single woman. She wanted me to sit on a shelf, like a toy she could come back to when she was done playing. And in that dead, airless quiet, a decision formed. It wasn't an emotional one. It was a logical one. A simple, clean, and absolute solution. I pulled my hand away from hers, smiled a little, and gave her the answer she wanted to hear. Of course, I said. I understand. Take all the time you need. I'll wait. Sarah's face flooded with relief. She squeezed my arm, beaming. Oh, thank you, baby. I knew you'd understand. You're the best. Ashley and Megan smiled, their work done. The good, understanding boyfriend had been placated. They spent the rest of the dinner talking about a girls' trip to Miami they were now planning for the weekend of what was supposed to be our wedding. A trip to celebrate Sarah finding herself. I just sat there, nodding and smiling, paying for their expensive cocktails and listening to them plan a party on the ashes of our future. I was the best. All right? The best damn fool they had ever seen. But not for long. That night, after I dropped them all off, I went home to our quiet house, my house, and I started to work. There was no rage, no heartbreak, just a calm, cold clarity. She wanted me to wait. Fine. She could wait and see what happened next. My first move was financial. I'm a software developer, and for the last 2 years I had been working on a personal project, an app that had recently been bought out by a major tech company. The deal had closed 3 weeks earlier. It was a life-changing amount of money, something Sarah knew about, and was, I now realized, the catalyst for all of this. I called my financial advisor and had him move the entire sum into a series of trusts and offshore accounts. Untouchable. Next, I went through our finances. I canceled her supplementary credit card. I closed the joint account she used for her expenses. I called my lawyer and had him draft paperwork to have her name removed from the car title, the car I had bought for her as a birthday present 2 years ago. Then I went digital. I logged into my social media accounts, Instagram, Facebook, everything. And I didn't just deactivate them. I permanently deleted them. Years of photos, memories, and connections, gone in a series of clicks. I backed up my contacts, then wiped my phone and got a new number. My final move was physical. I packed a single suitcase. Not with clothes, but with my hard drives, my laptops, and the legal documents for my company. I walked through the house one last time, looking at all the things we had accumulated. Her clothes in the closet, her makeup in the bathroom, her little decorations on the shelves. I didn't touch any of it. I just looked at it like it was a museum exhibit of a life that no longer existed. I wrote a single note and left it on the kitchen counter. It said, "I'll wait. Then I walked out, got in my car, drove to the airport, and bought a one-way, first-class ticket to a country on the other side of the world. By the time Sarah woke up the next morning, ready to start her new life of consequence-free freedom, I was already gone. I was a ghost. Update 1. I've been living in a small coastal town in Portugal for the last 6 weeks. I rented a villa overlooking the ocean. The internet is fast, the food is incredible, and nobody knows my name. The silence has been the best part. No drama, no expectations, just the sound of the waves and the quiet hum of my new life. I wouldn't have known about the chaos I left behind if it weren't for my brother Dan. He's the only person who knows where I am. We talk once a week, and he's been giving me the play-by-play of Sarah's slow-motion meltdown. It's been illuminating. According to Dan, the first week was exactly what Sarah had wanted. She told everyone that I was being incredibly supportive and giving her the space she needed. She and her friends went out every night, running up a tab on a credit card that, unbeknownst to them, had already been canceled. The bill for that week must have been astronomical. The first sign of trouble came that Friday. Sarah tried to buy a new dress for a night out, and the card was declined. She tried another, declined. She called the credit card company, and they informed her that the supplementary card had been canceled by the primary account holder. Dan said she called him in a panic, asking if he knew what was going on. He played dumb. "I don't know, Sarah. Maybe you should talk to Ben." "I'm trying," she apparently shrieked. "He's not answering his phone." She spent that entire weekend trying to contact me. Texts went undelivered. Calls went straight to a disconnected message. She checked my social media, and that's when the real panic must have set in. My digital footprint had been wiped clean. The next week, she started her campaign. She began texting our mutual friends. At first it was casual. "Hey, have you heard from Ben? He's being a little weird and not answering his phone." No one had. By the end of the second week, the texts had become more frantic. She was telling people that I was missing, that she was worried something had happened to me. She was trying to paint herself as the concerned, loving fiancé whose partner had vanished without a trace. Some people bought it. Her parents called the police to file a missing persons report. The police came to my house, saw that my car was gone and a suitcase was missing, and concluded that I had likely left voluntarily. There was no evidence of foul play. They told Sarah there was nothing they could do. The real turning point, according to Dan, was when she went to my house. She still had a key. She walked in, expecting to find me sitting in the dark, mourning her absence. Instead, she found the house exactly as she had left it. Her things were all there. The only thing missing was me, and my computers, and my note on the counter. Dan said she called him, absolutely hysterical, after finding the note. "What does this mean? I'll wait." "Wait for what? Where is he?" Dan's response was perfect. "I guess he's waiting for you to figure things out, Sarah. That's what you asked for, right?" The third week was when her financial reality came crashing down. The car I had bought her was repossessed. Her parents had to pay off the massive credit card bill she had racked up in her week of freedom. Ashley and Megan, her loyal cheerleaders, started to distance themselves. Her drama was no longer fun. It was a liability. She started showing up at my old office, asking my former colleagues if they knew where I was. They didn't. I had quit my job the day the buyout was finalized. She went to my parents' house, and my dad told her, in no uncertain terms, that she was no longer welcome there. By the end of the first month, she was a pariah in our old social circle. Everyone knew the truth now. She had tried to play a game, and she had lost spectacularly. The story was that she had driven her rich fiancé away with her entitlement and greed. She had fumbled the biggest bag of her life. Update 2. It's been 3 months now. The autumn in Portugal is beautiful. I've started a new company, a small consulting firm. The work is interesting, and I can do it from anywhere in the world. I've made a few friends, mostly expats like myself. I'm not waiting for anything. I'm living. Dan called me last week with the latest news from the home front. It seems Sarah's situation has continued to devolve in the most predictable ways. After being shunned by our old friends, she tried to reinvent herself. She moved out of her parents' house and into a tiny apartment with Ashley. That arrangement lasted for about 2 months. According to Dan, who heard it from a friend of a friend, it ended in a massive screaming match over rent money. Sarah had apparently expected Ashley to cover her share as a loan until she could get back on her feet. Ashley, who was tired of funding her friend's delusions, kicked her out. So, Sarah had to move back in with her parents. Again, she also had to get a real job. No more vague part-time gigs that were really just hobbies. She's working as a hostess at a chain restaurant now, the same one we used to go to when we first started dating. The irony is almost poetic. The most interesting development, though, is the narrative she's trying to spin. She's no longer the worried fiancé. Now she's the victim of a cruel, manipulative man who abandoned her without cause. She's telling people that I was secretive and controlling, that my sudden wealth changed me, and that I disappeared to avoid my responsibilities to her. It's a bold strategy, but it's not working. The problem for her is that too many people know the truth. Too many people were there at that dinner. Too many people received her frantic, unhinged texts in the weeks that followed. Dan told me about a particularly pathetic incident that happened a couple of weeks ago. She ran into a group of our old friends at a bar. She tried to join their conversation, launching into her sob story about how I had ghosted her. One of them, a guy named Mark who I've known since college, finally had enough. He cut her off mid-sentence. "Sarah, we were all there," he said. "We all heard you. You told him to wait. You wanted to pause your engagement so you could have a girls' work trip to Miami. You did this to yourself. Ben's not the bad guy here. He just gave you exactly what you asked for." Dan said the entire group just stared at her, and she completely fell apart. She started crying and yelling about how none of them understood, how they were all taking my side. She caused a huge scene and ended up getting kicked out of the bar. Her friends, Ashley and Megan, have completely cut her off. They are apparently telling everyone that Sarah is toxic and that they had tried to warn her she was making a mistake. They have conveniently forgotten their role as her primary enablers. They are now trying to salvage their own reputations by throwing her under the bus. It's a lonely life, I imagine, when you burn every bridge you've ever crossed. She thought she was playing a game of chess, but she didn't realize I wasn't playing. I just knocked the board over and walked away. Final update. It's been a year. I'm still in Portugal, but I've moved to a larger place in Lisbon. My business is thriving. I've been dating a woman here, a local architect. It's serious. It's real. It's the furthest thing from the drama-filled life I used to know. I went home for Christmas last year to see my family. It was the first time I had been back since I left. I stayed for 2 weeks, and it was strange, like visiting a town you used to live in, only to find that it's moved on without you, which was exactly what I wanted. I didn't see Sarah. I made a point of avoiding the places I knew she might be. But I heard about her. Oh, did I ever hear about her? The story of our breakup has become something of a local legend, the girl who asked a ghost to wait. Her life has not improved. She's still living with her parents, still working at the restaurant. Her attempts to win back sympathy have all failed. She has become a cautionary tale. My brother told me the final, pathetic chapter of her story so far. About 2 months ago, she apparently hired a lawyer, a budget, no-win, no-fee kind of guy. She was trying to sue me for breach of promise and emotional distress. She was claiming that our engagement was a verbal contract and that my disappearance had cost her years of her life and potential earning power. My lawyer back home, the same one who helped me secure my assets, received the letter. He told me he actually laughed out loud when he read it. He sent back a 1-page response. It included a signed and notarized affidavit from our wedding planner, detailing the events of the dinner where Sarah had asked me to wait. It also included a copy of the restaurant receipt, showing the $400 I had spent on her and her friend's celebratory dinner that night. The final paragraph of the letter was simple. It stated that I had, in fact, honored her request. I had waited. I was still waiting. I was just doing it from a different continent, and I would continue to wait indefinitely. It wished her the best in her own period of waiting. She dropped the lawsuit the next day. The lawyer probably told her she had a snowball's chance in hell of winning. That's the end of the story, really. There was no big confrontation, no tearful reunion, no satisfying moment of me telling her off to her face. My revenge wasn't about that. My revenge was my absence. It was the gaping, silent hole I left in her life where a future used to be. She wanted to put me on pause, to treat me like a convenience she could access whenever she was ready. She thought her request for me to wait was a power move, a way to control the situation. She didn't realize it was the last decision she would ever get to make in our relationship. I just let her words hang in the air, and then I built a new world in the silence that followed. She's still waiting, and I'm finally